Okay, I'm going to talk about Chapter 4 for a little while here. And it looks like these are starting to get a little bit shorter as we go along, which I'm sure you appreciate. Of course, the book gets better and better each chapter. I really enjoy this book, and I encourage you to read it and maybe read it twice. There are a lot of good ideas in here, and it's going to be too much and too fast for you to really understand it all right away. So you might keep this book and look at it when you have a little bit of time, maybe between sessions or when you're teaching. Go and review all this material again. So for the prompt for this one, what are some concepts in your content area and grade level for which you would use the concept attainment model? Why and how? Special education, bilingual education, ESL are not content areas. If in doubt, choose language arts or reading. As I read your meet and greet essays that you wrote, biographical blurb that you gave us, I noticed that some of you have science, some have language arts, English, others perhaps PE, and I'm not sure the others, a lot of special education, especially those from communication disorders. And so I'm assuming that if you're going to be doing special education, you'll probably be concentrating on either mathematics or writing or reading, because those are the tested areas and they're most concerned with those, even with the special education students. So pick a grade level. It can be any grade level that you think you're going to be with. If in doubt, choose sixth grade. Choose sixth grade PE, choose sixth grade language arts, sixth grade social studies, if in doubt, because, or maybe seventh grade. If you're going seventh to 12th grade, your first job might be seventh grade. If you're going from early childhood to sixth grade, there's a good chance you're going to be doing sixth grade. So think of those if you're not teaching already. So the concepts in your content area and grade level that would use the concept attainment model. After you've read the chapter, watched the video, thought about it, go through the TEKS for your content area and that grade level, and look at those and see some of the concepts in there and which ones you think, maybe 3 or 4, that would be most appropriate, and then tell me why it would be good for that, and then how you might teach it. But that would be, a few sentences on how you would teach it, maybe a paragraph on how you would teach it. List the 3, maybe a sentence or 2 on why, and then maybe a paragraph or 2 on how, in general, you would teach it, not for each one, but in general, those that you've chosen. Okay, so I think that will give you a little more of an idea on what my expectations are for here. Of course, the 3 references, the textbook can be 1. Don't use the same references over and over again, except for the textbook can always be one of your references. But I don't want another textbook, a similar textbook, and you use that over and over and over again. Textbooks really are not generally considered strong references. And I don't want the same website over and over and over again. Mix them up and find other ones. Show some variety, because I will start counting those as weak references if you're using the same website over and over again. Okay, let's go to the chapter. Chapter 4, the concept attainment model, defining concepts inductively. That's the second part of the title. Now, we have inductive and deductive. And inductive is basically where you look at evidence. You look for patterns in that evidence. And after looking at enough patterns and enough information that is repeated over and over again, from those patterns, you come up with generalizations and a conclusion. And so that would be the inductive way of study. The deductive is basically you're told what the generalization is, and then you go and you look for examples or you give examples. That's more deductive, and you find evidence for your conclusion, or you present evidence about your conclusion. So for me, inductive is a lot more fun, and I like sort of figuring out each of you inductively. I look at all of your assignments, I look at your progress through the semester, and by the end of the semester, I have a pretty good idea of who you are. That's a lot better than knowing who you are at the beginning and then go ahead and find evidence to confirm that. I don't think anyone wants to have those preconceptions. It's better that I find out through your patterns and how and spending time with you on looking at your assignments and so forth. So the basis for the concept attainment model is pretty much based on constructivism. I didn't see constructivism mentioned much in this chapter, but the people that they had at the beginning, those theorists, are pretty much the same theorists who come up with the constructivist model. And the constructivist model is not that you make up things and you don't come up with your own ideas and they're valid, but you experiment and you interact with the real world and with ideas, and from those you come to the same understandings that most other people have, but it is through interaction and not someone telling it to you, but you discovering for yourself and discovering with others how things work in the world and concepts and so forth. That's probably not a real good explanation, but you can study that and look it up and find some other explanations that are much more difficult and others that might be more simple. Okay, the steps in the concept attainment model. Okay, there are teacher steps. There's first two steps, what you, the teacher, have to do before you present it to the students. So keep that straight as you read this chapter. You might be a little confused when they do step 1 and step 2. Okay, first you to select and define a concept through the concept's essential characteristics. You find out what you want to teach, and then you come up with its characteristics, and you have a full understanding of those, and then you develop your positive and negative examples, what it is and what it isn't. They give examples in the textbook. Okay, they give the example of the concept of an apple. They also use the concept of the chair. And they have others in here as well, and they have other ideas for lessons and so forth for the different grade levels. And so you develop positive and negative examples of each of those. And whole grains that they mentioned in the textbook also. And so you find those. That's your job ahead of time, because you just don't go in there cold and see what happens. You're the teacher. You're going to be guiding them. And think of that lesson plan that we had before, the direct instruction plan, the presentation and the guided practice. Basically, the presentation and the guided practice are combined here in this model, the concept attainment model. And so it's basically the teacher and the students interacting throughout the hour, pretty much, or however much time you have with them. And you might not do this all the time, but it's good to mix this in here. If you're doing mostly direct instruction, it's good to have a day once in a while where you're going to do the concept attainment model, especially when you're presenting a new concept. And so even though this won't be your day by day all the time, you will want, the good teacher will use this occasionally at least, some more than others, some grade levels more than others. And it's not always easier at the upper grade. Sometimes it's easier at the lower grade. Sometimes first grade is easier than 10th grade for some of these concepts. Okay, so instructional steps. You review the model with your students. Let them know what's going on, how the procedure works. Have your discipline model or your classroom management, not that you're punishing them, but how you're managing them. If you have rules about who speaks and giving contributions and what you're going to do, like sometimes you're going to cross out a word, make sure that they know that they're not going to erase it and why, and so forth, as it explains in the book. So read the book over carefully there. Then present the examples to the students. And then, so you're doing the examples first. You haven't not told them what the concept is yet, but you're showing examples. And from your examples, you have both the positive examples and the non-examples, the ones that are not examples. You have the examples and the non-examples. Then you generate a hypothesis and continue the example hypothesis cycle. And you look at more things, more examples, more non-examples. Is your hypothesis good or not? And then after a while, you come up with a concept label and a definition. Now, your students might have trouble with that, so you might have to give them a little push, a little help with that, especially when they first start, if they have not done this with other teachers, and if they're younger, and even if they're older. And if you do this periodically throughout the semester, they will get better, or throughout the school year, they'll get better and better at it as a class. And you will see which of those students are the ones who are helping the others, and they learn from those who are contributing more. Then provide test examples to solidify the definition. Come up with a few more. You have some more in your bag of tricks, so to speak, test examples to see if they're off a little bit and to see if they're confirmed by those other examples. And then you, at the end, you sort of come together and you talk about it. How did it go? And the process again that you did and how you came up with this. Now, the evaluating learning and the concept attainment model is going to be pretty much the students. They give some good lesson plans in there. It's nice that they give you elementary, middle school, high school, and it's good they have different content areas as well. So really read those different examples. Those will be very good for you as you answer your prompt. And then the evaluation, it talks about them being able to, as individuals, not as a whole class, but as individuals, to be able to articulate the concept, tell you what it is, and give examples and the non-examples that you've had there. Not that they've memorized them, but that they're showing the learning, and they do it in a way that they can tell you that. And of course, if they can't do it written, then you might have to go around to individual students and have them come and express to you, maybe orally, if like they're kindergarten, first grade, second grade, they might have trouble writing these things down. And just understanding the question and what they're supposed to write. So you might have to do it orally in special education, for instance, students that have difficulty, dyslexia or something like that, if they have an accommodation. But we're not going to worry about that so much here. But you don't have to talk about that in your prompt and the answer to the question today. But if you were teaching those kind of classes, the concept attainment model, the evaluating learning, is how they're able to show a deep understanding of the concept that was attained there, that you know that they really have attained the concept, and they'll be able to use it in other contexts later on. Okay, I hope that helps a little bit to clarify a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't make it more confusing. If you have any questions, please give me a call or send me a note.